Delmarva Today with Don Rush.
It was a changing of the guard at the Salisbury City Council this week. You're listening to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. April Jackson was elected as president of the council, while Angela Black was chosen as council vice president. The change comes with a decision by Mayor Boda to resign as president of the council and to take on the position of director of housing and community development for the city of Salisbury. Before he leaves the scene, we took him aside in the hallway to talk about his tenure, including his political evolution from a libertarian candidate.
How does it feel to been on the council? I guess about 8 years. And you look back on what you've done. Is your proudest moment? What are your thoughts right now?
I'm proud of I think bringing an atmosphere of collaboration with everybody on the council and approaching things from a professional standpoint, but not being afraid also to tackle some big issues head on. So I think there's a lot of good things, the downtown redevelopment and, the main, redoing Main Street, Here is Home. There's some great things there that we're very proud of and to be a part of. And so it's building on that. And then now, it's the next thing.
So you had this interesting political career because you started as a libertarian. You ran for various offices. Take me through that evolution from someone who wished or aspired to be on the council or in some kind of position to where you are now. For me, it was never giving up and, keep trying, knowing that when you come into any time you run for office, if you're not well known or people don't, in the community as a whole know you, it's hard to build name recognition. Not all of us are born with the names of Alton and Cannon and Holloway, So, that's something that, took a lot of hard work. And once you get to meet people and you talk to people and you share ideas over the years, you start to build a reputation. And I think one of the things is I worked very hard to get to where I am. And then, as I knew I was approaching the end of my Walmart career, my professional career, I started working on getting my degree. And so knowing that some of the things that I wanted to do, you need a degree. And so I think that was working to attain that while working, while being on the council, while, having a family. It feels very rewarding once you achieve that and you're there. And then now you're planning on making as big of impact as I can on the lives of the people in our city. You started out as a libertarian. Do you still consider yourself that? Has your experience changed the way you look at government?
I think it does. I think there are some issues that I am libertarian on, and I think there's some issues that where I think we do need some government in our lives. But I think the role of government in our lives is if two people have a dispute, and I'm going to use property disputes. So you have to go to an independent third party, and I think that's a lot of times where government comes in to help settle the disputes or help protect the individual from force or fraud. That's the role of government in our lives, and I think we, taking that aspect of libertarianism and applying it on a day-to-day basis in government operations. Though, now I'm a registered Democrat, but again, there are some things that libertarians and progressives, and I probably consider myself more of a progressive on some issues, especially as I've grown and you start to step into the day-to-day things in the real world, where if you're out and you're thinking, just complete political thought, but you actually get into the application process, I think your mindset starts to change. And so you can't be closed-minded, and you have to look into the issues at a deeper level sometimes. And I think that's where I started opening my eyes up to other ideas.
Do you think, having this experience, that you've seen the importance of government intervention that perhaps you didn't see in the past? I mean, because we grow, as you say, in our jobs.
Well, I don't think I look at it as intervention. I look more of it as partnerships. So a lot of what we do as a government, requires partnerships in the community, because government can't do it alone. We can't do the Ann Street Village alone. It requires a community to help us. It requires multiple agencies, multiple charities, and other nonprofit organizations to help us with that. And that's a lot of times with big issues like that, such as homelessness. It takes everybody. It takes the community. We have a community that's already involved in it. We're just a partner. So, and I think that's how you address the issues head on as a community, in full partnership with everybody, and that's the mindset that I take into this role.
The biggest project that you're actually going to be leaving behind is, of course, the downtown development. How do you square that in terms of what you see as the role of government, and what are the problems ahead that you think are you going to see in trying to pull this thing together? I was talking to actually Brad Gillis the other day, and I asked him, I said, well, these are great plans, but like any other proposal, sometimes down the road, it doesn't work out. How do you see that development?
Well, what I see is government's role is to help create the environment for growth, to create the environment, and sometimes in the forms of partnerships when you want to see development, especially when housing is it's a critical need in our community, and every type of housing, whether it's luxury apartments, whether it's student housing, single-family homes, or, Ann Street Village, where we're taking people, and focusing on housing first as a solution. I think it's everything that we have to accommodate, and because we need it all. We need it all.
In terms of the future of downtown, are you confident that this project is going to get obviously off the ground, but to its completion? You've got it about 20 years out, and it's a tall order.
Yeah, no, I believe, I'm confident that they're going to get off the ground, they're going to get it done and get it built. I know that there's going to be a couple obstacles along the way, but a lot of times anything that you're going to do that's worthwhile is not going to be easy. There's always going to be obstacles, and I think as long as they stick to their guns and they keep a focus on the end prize, I think they're going to be successful. And that goes with all the projects that are coming up downtown. So I'm confident that, with the Ross, I always said that was the first domino. Once that goes up, you're going to see all these other projects fall in line. But this doesn't count all the millions of dollars of renovations that have happened in some of the older buildings downtown. So people don't see that. But there's been tens of millions of dollars in renovations downtown prior to anything going up. So it's already happening. It's been happening for years. And so I'm excited to see where people can see the other buildings that are actually going to be erected, because it's just now that's just like the outer shell of what's been going on for a long time.
How important was the upgrade of the downtown sewer and water system to all of this, do you think?
Well, that's the critical thing. I think once we did that, and the developers would see that, hey, okay, the city's serious, because they're investing $8, $9, $10 million in a project and upgrading, and sometimes water lines that were over 100 years old, and terracotta, pipes in the ground. It shows that we were serious, and not only we weren't just like paving the street and the sidewalk. We were digging up the old pipes and laying in everything new, including fiber optic, which is for the future. So I think once they saw that we made that investment and committed to it, I think that really also is a big piece of it, because they know that, okay, now it's all new down there, so we're ready to go.
In terms of transparency, do you think that the city was transparent enough or communicated enough about this project and its impact?
Yeah, I mean, we communicate to the channels that we do. Every meeting is posted. Every meeting is live on PAC 14. If we were meeting in another room, it was then broadcast that week. So I believe my tenure on the council, we've gone out of the way to be transparent. I mean, we took all the fees and everything and put them in one document, and now it's an ordinance. Before, you would have to go through the code to find everything. But our thing was, we need to have transparency so that everybody can see what a fee is, So that was like one thing where we were actively being transparent and making the city be transparent. And I think even in the past, all of this stuff, Unity Square, we had major presentations on this at council meetings. We had discussions in other forums, and it was always a positive response. Like, everybody said that they wanted this. I mean, this came from the citizens, this idea. So I think it's understanding that, just because some people didn't see it on a meeting or didn't know, I mean, it was there. And, and it was in news articles, it was on TV. You've discussed it on your program several times, and it probably even with Mayor Day when he was here. So, every chance we got, we were talking about it. And so it's been out there. So it's not, I don't know if we're supposed to do paid commercial advertising on WBOC so that everybody can see it for 30 minutes. I mean, we've been very transparent with this, and this has been a part of the process since I've been on. We've always said, this is the plan.
Why do you then think that there has been some pushback by some of the local businesses, and obviously concern over the lots themselves, but just simply the fact that there is this reluctance on some people to say, I don't know about the lots, I don't know whether this is going to work? I'm confident that when we build a new parking garage, that's going to help. That's going to help with the parking issue. And so I think I think their concern is the temporary inconvenience. It was the same thing when we did Main Street. It was a temporary inconvenience, but now that it's done, okay, we're ready to go. And I think it's the same thing with this. I think once the parking garage is built, and the city's been actively working on adding parking on the streets, so it's a change, and I think sometimes people are a little resistant to change, but I think once it occurs and we get used to it and we adapt and we adjust, everything's going to be fine. So when I was talking to Brad Gillis, and he was saying one of the problems with small towns in terms of redevelopment that you've talked about is that it's hard to get investors from outside. That is probably the key problem. Do you see it that way?
Well, it is, and a lot of it is because our local banks are limited. So so when they're limited on the amount of money that they can, loan for a project, that's where, it's usually when we need that next level. And the Ross is a good example that we needed outside investment to make that happen, because the local banks, there's only so much that they can do. Right. And so that's kind of the key when you get that outside investment to go to the next level on luxury apartments or hotel and conference center or 14-story college housing. So that's the critical piece, because it's locally, and anywhere you go around the country in that, especially in small towns or small cities, they run into the same problem. It's not New York, Philadelphia, D.C., Chicago, Atlanta, because all that money is there, but it's trying to attract that type of investment in your community. And they need to see that there's a local buy-in to it and that the local government's behind it. So, and I think that's what we have shown over the past 8 years is that, hey, we're open to this. We're willing to do this. Hey, we're going to redo our downtown Main Street to help accommodate this and show that we're a partner.
In terms of leaving this job, anything you're going to miss?
Built some great relationships with the members of the council. And even if I go back, Jim Ireton, former mayor, Hardy Rudisill, the first African-American on our city council, or African-American male. And then, there are so many good people that I've served with, and now it's a different perspective. It's I'm sitting from the other side, and but one of the things I take is I kind of understand how a legislature and a council thinks. So it's knowing how to present what they want to hear and what they expect, and building that relationship from the other side. So I am going to miss it, and I built a lot of relationships with elected officials throughout the region and throughout the state, but they're great resources. And so I've also built that relationship with legislatures and everything. So when there's issues, we'll be able to lean on those relationships. It's not something I have to build up from day one. I've got that in my arsenal.
So what do you think you'd like to do in this new position, the housing secretary?
Well, again, it's strengthening up the Housing First program. And, the Ann Street Village is a key component to that. And so there's going to be some key fundraising that's going to happen to make sure that program is sustainable. And there's a lot of input from the community that want to support the program. So look for, some things in that line of building up and strengthening that program. Our community centers, it's critical that we have the necessary program and all that. And I think even, expanding on those successes and reaching out to some other areas of towns where it's going to be more partnerships in some areas. Maybe we can get another community center, but I think there's still a lot of buildings available through churches. So I think it's building some relationships there and offering some of the similar things in our existing community centers with other partners. So that's one aspect, something that I want to target. On the code enforcement side, that's the other piece of it, and finding a solution. We were discussing an issue tonight, so finding a solution and on that issue and some of the other issues, but doing it more from a collaborative standpoint, not necessarily heavy-handedness, but you have to be that when you need to be. But I think there's still finding solutions to some of those issues that people in our community are struggling with, and finding resources for them if they can't fix a house. So I think there's some things we can do on that end, helping people find some support in those areas if it's a health and safety issue. So it's three things, and but they're all three equally important. But I do think coming out of it, the housing first is a critical issue. And that's one of my first webinars that I'm going to join in on is called Housing as Healthcare, because it's critical for those who are unhoused to be housed, because they need that, and it affects their health. So I'm excited to start learning and expanding my horizons on some things, and so I'm just excited, and I'm ready to get going.
Finally, one of the things that struck me is over the years as I've covered the city is that there are areas where the housing is clearly substandard. Mm-hmm. Church Street area, for example, has had its problems, just for one example, but a number. Is there some thoughts about how you can deal with that kind of housing to either upgrade it or change those neighborhoods? Because the neighborhoods aren't going to go away. They're going to be there no matter what.
No, and I think there's some aspect of programming that you can do and some things that I've been reading up on is creating some funds as grants to help people upscale their houses. And these are, I'm talking homeowners that are living in. And I think on the other side, when it comes to rentals and stuff, if there's some things that we can do to help increase the quality of the housing stock, because you're going to see thousands of housing units come online in the city over the next 4 to 5 years. And that's going to create some issues where those, especially on the landlord side, who are offering housing, are going to be it's going to be a bigger competition. And so they're going to have to up their game and the quality of their housing. Are there things that maybe the city can look at to help incentivize that? Mm-hmm. I think there's some things that we can maybe look into on that piece, but I do think that there are some things, especially when you're trying to encourage home ownership, where the city can actually go in and then of course I've not run this by my mayor and city administrator, but there are some programs where the city can actually be a guarantor on a loan and help take a couple percentage points off the interest. And I think that's some stuff that's being tried around the country. I think there's some things that we can look into in that to encourage home ownership.
Former Salisbury City Council President Mira Boda, after leaving the position of Council President to become the Director of Housing and Community Development for the City of Salisbury. You're listening to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush.
Delmarva Today with Don Rush.